Hello everyone, Forest Focus as Sean Dyche settles in nicely as Nottingham Forest manager. We want to take the time during the international break to take a look at what we learned when it comes to attacking, defending, in possession, out of possession, a bit of analysis, stuff that's gone down well before, really well before. Appreciate once again James Belshaw joining us. Belly, how are you doing this evening?
Yeah, all good. Just finally warmed up from coaching. It was a bit cold out there tonight, but no, all good. Pleasure to be on.
Yes,
Thanks for having me.
I can't believe you. Well, I guess this is what you have to do when you're coaching kids on a freezing Monday night. But good of you. Go on. Give us the name of the East Midlands Premier Goalkeeping Academy again.
Yeah, we've got East Midlands Elite Soccer. We run 2 nights a week. We're opening a third night on a Thursday, based in Radcliffe-on-Trent. So yeah, anyone find us on socials or direct message me if anyone wants any first-class goalkeeper coaching.
Yeah, in all weather, definitely.
Yeah, in all weather. Yeah.
Right, as mentioned, we've done this before. We did it with Ange and uncovered some alarming things, but he was gone like 2 weeks later, so that was all good. Sean's come in and hit the ground running, I think it's fair to say. So I asked Belly if he would generously go through a few goals, see what he's noticed, a few patterns of play, stuff that we've been discussing a bit on the pod, but in more detail and with some graphics to highlight it. So Belly's gone away and done that as ever, which I really appreciate. What do you want to start with then?
Well, I think with the Forest goals, the goals that Forest have scored, there was obviously the 2 against United and then the 3 against Leeds. The common theme that sort of noticed from those goals is a lot of it's coming from the right hand side. So particularly Dan and Dyche, Savona joining in with the attack. So whether that's kind of something that Sean Dyche has worked on, whether he's maybe on the left-hand side, if he's been playing Dominguez maybe naturally or tuck inside with Williams giving the width. But I think Forest have got a lot of joy down that right-hand side in 2v1 scenarios, trying to isolate fullbacks. Got a lot of joy against Leeds, particularly Amari Hutchinson when Jack Harrison came on as a makeshift left-back and had a bit of a torrid time against Hutchinson. But both Man U goals come from deliveries from that wide right area. The 2 Leeds goals come from that when Perry parries the ball from Ndoye's cross, and then the cross for Hutchinson where he cuts back on his left foot for Gibbs-White, and then the penalty as well is Hutchinson driving in on that side. So whether that's a pattern of play that Forest have worked on, you look at the build that comes before that. The first goal against Leeds was a ball from the right back area, straight down the line, and then Murillo's big switch out to Hutchinson, which is unreal ball for Forest's second goal for Gibbs-White's header. Which, yeah, it looks like the target in that area of the pitch, and Doy's been excellent in recent weeks. Hutchinson obviously came on and with an impressive cameo against Leeds, and then with Savona in that area of the pitch joining in with the attack, and like I said, creating those overload scenarios. It also allows Morgan Gibbs-White to play further forward if Forest are targeting that area, and like I said, from the evidence suggests that goals are coming from that part of the pitch, then Gibbs-White's getting on the end of stuff and playing almost as a second centre forward alongside Jesus in this instance. But yeah, whether that's something they've worked on, I'd imagine Sean Dyche and his analysts are all over that and the way that Forest want to set up. But to me, it seems that they're getting a lot of joy from that area in the pitch in particular.
We've got a few slides then that I'll put on the screen. We can talk about those. This isn't one we'll necessarily discuss, but I did go all the way back to the Porto game to see if it was something that Dyche was implementing from the start. Belly spoke about Gibbs-White getting in the box. You can see here, he's just, again, people who are listening to this, it isn't the perfect one, but if you go back and watch the highlights, it will translate well. But Gibbs-White, this is a cross from Hudson-Odoi. Gibbs-White goes in. Savona's on the back post. This leads to the penalty where Savona wins it. So I just put that in because Savona plays really high, as mentioned. So if we go back, I'll just put this on the screen. This is Savona's goal against Man United. He's number 37, Belly. He gets in the box, doesn't he? And he gets really high in support of Ndoye. He's got a bit of an instinct about him as an attacking player, hasn't he? Is it fair to say?
He has, but what he also does is, because, like I said, he gets in these areas of the pitch, he then becomes a threat for the defenders. So it's not just Dan and Ndoye 1v1 in wide areas. I think it's Cunha out there, and Savona's occupying Luke Shaw's mind. So Luke Shaw can't then go out and double up against Dan and Doy. So Savona being in that position allows Ndoye to be sort of 1v1 out there. But the alarming thing here from a Manchester United point of view is there's 5 players around Gibbs-White and Jesus, and with Shaw with Savona there. So you got 6v3 overload for Man U, and I think Savona gets on the second phase here. But again, yeah, there we go. So there's 3 Forest players around 5, sort of 6 Man United players. So Man United would be disappointed that they've not dealt better with the cross. But then it's that instinct for Savona for the that underlapping position instead of the traditional overlap from a fullback where he's going around the outside to sort of draw the left back away from the winger. He's cutting in on the inside. So Dan and Doy's potentially got a pass to slip him in, or in this case, he can get in the box and bag himself a goal. But I think he's been a real sort of positive in the games that I've seen in terms of his attacking play. I think there's defensive moments where you could probably question him a little bit from what I've seen, but I think this is definitely something down that right hand side that Forest will have worked on to occupy the defenders, to create 2v1 overloads, and then he's got himself a goal here, which is, yeah, for a right back, if he's chipping in with sort of 4 or 5 a season, then that's really, really, really positive for Forest.
Yeah, when I watched it back, he's the only one who reacts to this nod down off Jesus. So he's obviously got an instinct. I do agree about defensively. You just wonder a little bit about him. This is the Leeds equaliser for Sangare. Savona's out here. He gets the ball and he knocks it to Dan and Doy, who puts a good cross in. And one of the things you know is men in the box, midfielders having a responsibility to break in. Talk us through this one. Dominguez, Jesus is about 7 yards out. Then it's Dominguez who runs in, and Sangare is just breaking into the box now. What do you like about this goal?
I think what's really good is, first of all, it's that overload situation that Forest created that we saw from the previous slide. And then in this situation here, what I really like is Sangare's instinct, because throughout the game, we noticed a lot, and we'll come on to it in a little while, in terms of Gibbs-White's positioning and how he's playing in support of Jesus, whereas in this scenario, Gibbs-White's obviously dropped deep to get in with the build. So Sangare's recognised that. So because Morgan Gibbs-White is behind Sangare can then go and get on the end of it, and he anticipates really well. And whether that's something that Sean Dyche wants from his holding midfield players, look, we know that Gibbs-White is his preferred option in those areas to be that attacking threat. But when Gibbs-White can drop deep and get involved with the build, we know what a talented footballer he is. You see it where he's dropping into pockets and picking up space, whether on the right wing, the left wing, or dropping in with the 2 central midfield players. But in these scenarios, if Gibbs-White can't get in the box, Sangare's read this situation perfectly and in the right place. And I said it the other week when I did the game analysis, it's a really smart finish, because it's so easy in those situations to lash at the ball, or to put the ball over the bar, or to hit one of the defenders. But it's a really, really cultured finish from him. And again, it's excellent work from Ndoye out there. And like I said, Forest have looked a big threat from that area in the pitch.
Yeah, he did miss one. You won't remember it, but he missed one against Luton, and I think it must have haunted him because it was the same area. So it was really pleasing to see him put that one away, definitely. Just looking, you mentioned Morgan there. I mean, this is from Will, WT Analysis. This is average position. And you can see it's Jesus and Morgan as kind of this average position. First half, they're our most central attacking players. Dominguez is tucked in, and Doy's playing very high, and then the fullbacks are tucked on. The second half is a bit wild, with Morgan playing really advanced ahead of everyone. I don't know if that's because of subs have been made and a few things are switched around. But this principle here, does it show what you saw in the Leeds game? Dominguez drops into midfield, and we play pretty much, a narrow midfield, and then without the ball, it's more of a 4-4-2, you think?
Yeah, I think with these positions, I think what this graphic doesn't tell you is the in possession versus out of possession positions. I think this is kind of a summary of, I'm assuming it's a summary of both in possession and out of possession. So what I noticed in possession is Gibbs-White does have that license to roam. There's times when Milenkovic or Murillo are on the ball, Anderson, Sangare, and Morgan Gibbs-White can drop really deep to get involved with the build. He ends up on the right wing at times, and he picks up these lovely little pockets, and it does allow Forest to build with an extra man. And then, like we said, in those scenarios where Dominguez can roll inside to make that extra sort of man in the midfield, or even in the number 10 position if Morgan has dropped in, because Nico Williams is isolating the fullback Jayden Bogle in this instance and pushing up really high. But I think the reason why it looks like that is because of his out of possession work. And I think this is something that Sean Dyche looked to implement in the Leeds game, where Forest pressing as a 4-4-2. So he really wanted Morgan Gibbs-White up there with Igor Jesus. And at times it was Gibbs-White who was the most advanced presser. Now, whether that's because Morgan Gibbs-White has a better engine than Jesus, whether he can cover ground quicker and is more effective in the press. And then what will happen is Morgan Gibbs-White, when he presses, will try and force the play down one side, and then Igor Jesus will sort of drop into that number 10 role. But what it did look like was a 4-4-2. Now, Leeds built with a 3, particularly from goal kicks. They had the right back and the 2 centre halves kind of building as a 3. They pushed Goodmanson, the left back, sort of pushed into midfield to make a 4. So Leeds almost looked like a 3-4-3 in possession when they were building. Now, if you've then got Forest sitting in a 4-4-2 out of possession, you've got Igor Jesus and Gibbs-White as your front 2. Now, they will then press the back 3 of Leeds, which is formed by the right back and the 2 centre backs. Now, what that then leaves in midfield is a 4v4. If Dominguez and Ndoye are tucking in with Anderson and Sangare against Leeds as midfield 4, which looks like their left back and then the other 3 midfielders, Forest are then okay at the back because they've got a 4v3 overload against Leeds as 3 attackers. But the only time that Leeds were getting joy in the build was when Ampadu was sort of dropping in as that holding midfield player. Because Forest are 4v4, if Anderson or Sangare doesn't jump onto Ampadu, then it allowed Ampadu to turn and pick a pass, and that's when they sort of looked to hurt Forest, particularly in that first half. Now, if Forest were to press with a 4-2-3-1 in the standard sort of shape they're in, then Gibbs-White would be the natural player to sit on Ampadu. But in this instance, Sean Dyche wants Morgan Gibbs-White to press high up the pitch. He's got 2 really attacking players in Jesus and Gibbs-White to press and try and win the ball back as high as they can and then go directly to goal. But then in that instance, if that press does get broken, then you'd probably want one of your midfielders, whether it's one of the wide players tucking in or whether it is Anderson or Sangare, to then press onto Ampadu if it is going to be a full court press and Forest are going to try and win the ball back high up the pitch. So in terms of his average positions, I think it is kind of skewed because of his out of possession work. I think his out of possession work did leave him higher up the pitch, and that's obviously something that Sean Dyche will want to implement. He played. I mean, Sean Dyche was a 4-4-2 at Burnley. I think he knows that system really well, and yeah, that's sort of why that graphic is sort of skewed. But even in possession, I know I was saying he does roam and drop deep, but you look at he scored 2 goals getting on the end of stuff in the box, which kind of suits this sort of theory that I'm sort of proposing from what I've seen from the goals that they've scored in terms of attacking this right side of the pitch and getting crosses into the box. So he's got an incredible engine, and like I said, I think after Elliott, he's Forest's most influential player. So to get him firing, to get goals in him the last few weeks, he's not been picked for England, so hopefully coming back with a bit of a point to prove after this international break. And yeah, a tough fixture for Forest coming up at the weekend. But yeah, I think he's obviously got a fantastic engine to be able to cover ground, and it's a role that Sean Dyche will want him to do to press with that front 2.
Yeah, we will look at those couple of goals that he scored, 1v United, 1v Leeds, certainly. With the shape that we have out of possession, who is the onus on most so you don't get played through, you don't get beaten? Do the wingers have a lot to do? Is it the 2 central midfielders? Is it Morgan? Or is it a collective thing? Where does the balance of responsibility lie when you're out of possession in a Dyche team?
So in terms of the press, it would be one of the furthest forward player would usually start the press. Now, what you don't want is one player trying to press and then the rest of the team being so disjointed that they can't get up the pitch with him. So that's where you would need a shout from one of the midfield players or one of the defenders to kind of hold the press if the midfield 4 or the back 4 in this instance aren't high up the pitch enough to be able to back up the press. Now, in a 4-4-2 out of possession, you want to narrow the pitch. You don't want people to play through you because you've got the 2 flat banks of 4. You haven't got anything offset in there. One pass through the middle of you can take 4 players out of the game. So the onus on a 4-4-2 out of possession is to sit really narrow. So you tuck your wingers in. So Ndoye, in this case, Dominguez, more of a natural central midfield player. It will suit him better to be able to tuck inside, and then you afford the space out wide to Leeds because you can't cover everything, obviously. And then if the ball then does go to that wide areas, you then narrow the pitch off the opposite side, wide man. will tuck inside the opposite side fullback, and you narrow the pitch up and you try and keep the ball down one side of the pitch. So that's the way that a standard sort of 4-4-2 press would work. And like I said, the big problems are if there's gaps between players in the line, so between the right midfield player and the central midfield player, or like you see here, gaps between the back four and the midfield four, where the press may not have been correct in the sense that the midfielders have gone pressing, but the back four have dropped deep because they're worried about the threat in behind. Because if the player that you're pressing hasn't got pressure on the ball, as a defender you can't squeeze, because if you've got a centre back or a Man United player or a left back who's not got pressure on the ball, the defenders can't squeeze up, because then they're worried about that ball over the top. So once you get the head down, get pressure on the ball, then the defence can slide up. So like I said, this stuff takes a lot of time to implement. So managers that come in middle of the season, like Ange coming in, Sean Dyche coming in, they're expected to get results straight away, particularly at the top level, and you don't get that time. But to implement an out of possession structure and a playing style does take time, and that's kind of going on Dyche's previous at Burnley and Everton, and how he set those teams up, pretty 4-4-2, 4-4-1-1. Out of possession, that's probably kind of what he's going to try and mould this Forest team into.
Yeah, on the screen, it was hard to find examples because I was looking through highlights packages, because I just wanted to say people couldn't find it themselves, but this is against Man U. And this happened 3 or 4 times in the first half, I recall, with Bruno Fernandes dropping into pockets. This led to a shot from Ahmad, which Sels saved. But yeah, it didn't happen as much in the second half, so I don't know if Dyche must have done something to prevent that.
Well,
but it was.
If you look at Man U, we know they're a 3-4-2-1. Amorim's very rigid in his in the way that he sets his team up. Now, Fernandes is one of the holding midfield players, so in this instance, you're probably looking at matching up. I think it's Yates and Anderson. It looks like are the two in midfield here. So you're looking at them two dealing with Fernandes and Casemiro and being sort of 2v2 in there. Now, if you're struggling for possession, you can then drop Morgan in there and try and get a 3v2 overload. Then you're relying on your back four, so Williams, Milenkovic, Murillo, and Savona to deal with Mbeumo, Sesko, and Cunha. So you've still got the 4v3 there, but Bruno Fernandes is Man U's most creative player, his most influential player. So if Sean Dyche wants the 4-4-2 out of possession, then the responsibility does rely on Elliott and Ryan Yates there to be. Again, I don't know what's preceded this passage of play. You don't know what the press has been, but from this still, it would be them two that would be responsible for Fernandes and Casemiro.
Yeah, this was. I don't know what happened before. This was Luke Shaw knocks a ball into Fernandes in a decent pocket of space, certainly. Right, just before we'll get to those goals scored by Morgan, but before that, a word for the Trent Navigation. If you check their website on gigantic.com, you'll see the music stuff that's coming up. There's a couple of gigs. I'll take that one and the Legends of Rock one. Not the take that tribute. On screen as well, all the offers that run through the week. Wednesday pizza, Thursday pie night, Friday fish and chips, and then it gets to Sunday roast. And I'm testing my memory if I've got dementia or not here. But have you already answered the Sunday roast question, Belly?
Yeah, it was last time. Yeah, it was. I went for the roast beef. I got out of all the innuendos that Paul Morley was trying to get. But I did go to the Nav on Saturday. I thought I might get. I went after we played Notts, so I went in there afterwards with a few mates, and I was hoping to get a bit of discount or something. But no, obviously I didn't get anything. So yeah.
So did you get any trouble with anyone? You played well against your team for Harrogate. Was it all right?
Yeah, there's a few Notts fans coming up. Everything was all in good gesture.
No, it was good. That was a good point for you. You've been on a right trot. Well, you've not been even in the team, so it was good for you to come back and put a point on the board, wasn't it?
Yeah, considering we had 3 subs on the bench because we plagued with injuries. We had 4 injuries on Tuesday night. And yeah, it was a last-minute contentious penalty that Notts were awarded and scored. But no, obviously my family are Notts fans. My dad's a Notts County season ticket holder, so it's always a special day to play there for me.
Yeah, well done. Good to see you back in the side, certainly. Right, let's talk. We'll do Morgan's goals then against Man United first, and then we'll do the Leeds one. This is just as the ball's coming in. Just talk us through Forest's attacking setup there. Yates is about to get the ball. I assume we must have had a set piece because Milenkovic is one of the 4 in the box. But talk us through what you're seeing here.
Yeah, what I like about this setup for Forest is you almost got an overload at the back if you counted Hudson-Odoi around the back stick. So again, defensively from Manchester United, there's sort of Fernandes, looks like Luke Shaw, and Can't really see who that is next to Mbeumo in the box, but you've got three sort of Man U players not really doing anything. So it gives Forest that overload at the back stick, and what it allows Gibbs-White to do is get across. Is it Ahmad? I think it's Ahmad in there.
Yeah, it's Ahmad, yeah.
Yeah, that Gibbs-White can get across, and it's a great ball in. It's a really smart header, but like we've said, Forest are dangerous in these positions, and Gibbs-White there, it's a fantastic header. Keeper's got no chance, and Gibbs-White joining in the play and being up there in the box alongside Jesus is a massive plus for Forest. And even there, Hudson-Odoi out the back, look at the space he's got. So if that gets cleared or knocked down, you'd back one of those Forest players to fall onto it. And except from a Manchester United point of view, with the numbers they've got in the box there, it's not a great goal. And like we saw with the Savona one, they've not dealt with the ball in the box well. But I think in this instance, credit to Gibbs-White getting across the front of your man, getting in between. Is it Lenny Yoro and Delict there? He gets in between the fullback and the right centre half, and yeah, great header.
Yeah, we really targeted Ahmad in that game really well. Hudson-Odoi seemed to play quite beyond him, and I thought it was really good coaching by Sean Dyche. This is his goal against Leeds. As we mentioned, Murillo absolutely pings it. Hutchinson standing up Goodmanson, and then you've got Gibbs-White and Jakob Buyol, who I think we tried to sign. We were certainly very strongly linked with him a couple of times from Udinese. From a Leeds point of view, if you're in the Leeds goal now, do you like this setup? Or should we be scoring a goal from here or not?
I mean, from what I can see, obviously I can't really see kind of this side of the pitch, but from that still, I'm quite happy with that. You've got Ampadu cutting back in. Goodmanson's got Hutchinson 1v1 there. Now, where credit goes to Gibbs-White is the movement now, because the goal against Manchester United, he's already in there waiting for the delivery. Whereas with this one, you look how far outside the post he is, and where he actually ends up heading the ball just inside in the 6-yard box, just in that area. So the movement there leads, to be fair, they've recovered the numbers well. But again, marking wise for me as a goalkeeper, you're looking at that straight away and going, Ampadu, or you need someone ball side, goal side of Gibbs-White there. But his movement to get into that position, and it's a fantastic ball in from Omari Hutchinson. As a goalkeeper, they're horrible to deal with when the wide player, so in this instance, a player on the wide right cuts back onto his left foot and he's whipping that in-swinging ball, because they're the type of balls that they'll just nip in at the back post, or you're expecting someone to get a touch or someone running across it and the ball ends up going in at the back post. We've all seen goals like that. So they're really hard to deal with, because as a goalkeeper, firstly, your job is to protect the goal. So you're following the trajectory of the ball, you're waiting to see where it goes, and then if someone gets a touch on it, you're hoping that it just hits you or it goes wide. But it's a really, really good ball. Goalkeeper can't come and affect a ball like that because it's such a flat delivery. But Gibbs-White's movement comes in from sort of the, 15, 18 yards out on the left-hand side, gets in between the penalty spot and the 6-yard box, and it's a glancing header, which is fantastic and really good sort of, I'd say, striker's movement there. That's a goal that's sort of like you Chris Ward or someone like that, someone with a striker's instinct would be scoring. So for a creative attacking midfield player to be scoring a header like that, following the movement like that, is really, really is a really good weapon for Forest to have.
Just one more on this goal. This is a Leeds point. As this isn't original, I saw a pundit say this, but if you're a keeper and you see your centre half stood with his hands behind his back, so he doesn't give a handball away as Buyol is, but the cross is coming in, it's like that's a 10 to about a 10-yard gap, 15-yard thing. That's really poor defending, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, in the VAR era and the top level scrutiny that goes on, like you do see defenders defending like that, and you say your arms are in an unnatural position. To me, that's an unnatural position to defend in, but that's synonymous. You usually see that with players who are sort of 3 or 4 yards away from the ball when they know a shot's coming in. So from that sort of distance, I probably wouldn't want my centre half to be defending with his hands behind his back there. But I will kind of caveat this sort of analysis in terms of looking at stills like this, because you don't know what's kind of gone on before, and it is really kind of, it's so easy to sit here, and I know I'm a League Two goalkeeper talking about Premier League players, but it's so easy to sit and look at a still and go, well, if he was there and he was there, like these passages of play happen in nanoseconds, and you're dealing with elite attacking players and elite defenders as well. So yeah, I will caveat that saying it's easy to sit here and from your sofa at 9 o'clock at night with a cup of tea and look and go, well, he should be there and he should be doing this. But yeah, we're just trying to obviously provide kind of some context to what we're seeing and to give credit where credit's due. And in this case, it's excellent movement from Morgan. It's a really, really good ball from Amari Hutchinson. And it was probably a time in the game where I think Leeds had just had a chance. I think Forest, it was sort of a bit nervy for Forest fans at this point. I mean, me as a neutral kind of watching it, I'd never really felt like Forest were in any doubt. But having spoken to a few Forest fans, I think it was a bit of a nervy sort of last 20. And this goal sort of helped settle the nerve before the late penalty. But yeah, again, Forest looking a real threat down that side of the pitch.
Yeah, great ball. I had a message from someone saying, why don't you just use match footage? I'm just worried that it'd all get taken down and YouTube would stop me making money from videos because I'll be breaching all sorts of copyright. But lots of these YouTube channels do, but I'm just not brave enough to do it. Right, let's have a look then. That's all the good stuff that we've done. Just a quick look at the other side of the ledger then. Some of the goals we've conceded. So we'll do Bournemouth first. I think just doing it chronologically. I did have a Bournemouth corner one. I'll just start with this one from Sels then. Obviously, I wanted to ask you about this. This is the goal that goes straight in from a corner. I don't have our setup, but I do have a different one from corners. But specifically for this one, Matz Sels, I feel like we've done this one before because we did it a couple of times about him being targeted. But what are your initial thoughts on that and what we're seeing here?
So my initial thoughts on the previous analysis I've done on Matz Sels, we looked at goals that Forest conceded last year, and we looked at goals that Forest have conceded this year. And a common theme has been crossing into the box and defending set pieces. Now, for me as a goalkeeper, and for Matz Sels has come under scrutiny for the way that he deals with crosses, the way that he commands his box. Now, look, Matz Sels is an elite level Premier League goalkeeper, a lot better in goal than I am. But in this scenario here, and from goals that, I remember there was one with Jota that was on him last year in the Liverpool game. There was an instance in the Leeds game where Ampadu is on him. I don't know whether it's Matz Sels' preference or whether it's Sean Dyche or the way that Forest want to set up, but under Nuno, under Ange, and now under Dyche, there's no one in there with Matz Sels protecting him. Is it Tyler Roberts? I don't know who's Adams.
Tyler Adams is.
Tyler Adams, sorry, yeah, that's in there with him. For me as a goalkeeper, if I have a spare man in that defensive setup, I would want him to protect me in terms of keeping the attacker off me. So in this instance, Forest corner setup, we'll go into the stills later on, but there's 6 zonal players in the 6-yard box. Now for me, I would want one of those zonal players in there with me as a goalkeeper to keep him off me. Now, this then does become a difficult ball for Matz Sels to deal with. Like, look, everyone will be sitting at home or listening to go, well, he's been beaten direct from a corner. And I get that, and I get the logic behind it. But when you actually see what's going on here, when you watch it in slow motion, he gets a little nudge initially from Adams and then gets another one into his ribs. Now, like that one there, you can see that now. It's probably not enough to be a foul. Yeah, goalkeepers do get a lot of protection and in some instances do get too much protection. But that little nudge there, when you watch the way that Matz Sels jumps, anyone who watched the slow-mo, his body will arch backwards as he jumps up and it ends up mistiming his jump because he gets that little, it's not a shove, it's almost like a stiff arm because he can't then jump where he wants to jump and he does end up getting underneath the flight of the ball. Now, you can say that be stronger, shift him a little bit, and whilst all those are true, for me, watching the goals that Forest have conceded, and clubs will watch this. I mean, if I'm sat here as a League Two goalkeeper watching the goals that Forest have conceded, there'll be these people who are paid in the Premier League to analyse set pieces. It's a very sort of trendy topic this season, the long throws and the set pieces. Like, people will watch this and people will then target Forest. So for me, to save all of this, get a player in between you and the striker and keep him off Matz Sels. So it gives Matz Sels freedom to jump, first of all, when he wants and where he wants. He can then attack the ball down different routes. He can go forward. He can drop his feet and set backwards for anything that's deep. He can get out to his 6-yard box. for me, that negates this. Look, it's a goal direct from a corner. But I'm analysing why certain things have happened. Is it a foul? Probably not. But what Tyler Adams does prevents Matz Sels from doing what he wants to do, and that ultimately the ball ends up going in the goal.
Yeah, he sort of, when he jumps, I watched it back because I was doing the stills for this. He sort of jumps into the goal because he gives him that nudge and it pushes him the wrong trajectory, I guess, doesn't it?
Yeah, and he just can't jump where he wants to. Like, as a goalkeeper, in your warm-up, you'll catch you catch however many crosses, you go and jump with the ball, you catch it at the highest point, you're at full extension, and everything's really comfortable. But in this scenario, when you've got a striker there it is impacting Matz Sels. Like I said, I can hear people saying, well, he's got to be stronger, he's this, that, and the other. But what Tyler Adams does impacts Matz Sels, and that's what causes him to get underneath the ball and the ball to go in. But again, for me, just get someone in there, keeping the attacker off the goalkeeper, and then gives Matz Sels the freedom to be able to dominate that 6-yard box and to be able to, in this instance, just probably comfortably tip the ball over the bar.
Yeah, I didn't think it was a foul at the time. I probably still don't, really, to be honest. But you can see why why he would be annoyed. Although he didn't really even protest at the time, so it was interesting. Let's just quickly dust off the Bournemouth goal then, just to get your take on the Bournemouth second goal. A mess in midfield, a rare error from Anderson with Louise, I would say, or between them losing the ball. Eli Krupi Jr. has received it here. I mean, from here, I don't see how you concede. We know they do, but we're not in a bad place there, are we? So at the moment he's got the ball.
No, for me, in this scenario, you've got a 4v3 overload in Forest's favour. Now, Eli Krupi picks the ball up and Milenkovic allows him to travel. Now, in this scenario, as a defender, as a goalkeeper, I would want my defenders to get tight to the ball as soon as they can. Now, the reason why defenders in this scenario won't get tight would be if Eli Krupi was travelling with the ball and he had runners alongside him, or if there was a runner in this instance on Murillo or inside the fullback, that the ball could be threaded through, then that's why you have to drop off, because you can't step up and allow that ball to be played through, and then whoever's the wide man or the supporting striker can then be played through on goal, and it becomes an easy 1v1 scenario against the goalkeeper. Now, my sort of issue with the defending in this scenario is Milenkovic continues to back off and doesn't go and get pressure on the ball. Now, at the point of contact here, he's 28, 29. You can see from the cuts in the grass, so he's just inside 30 yards out. Now, whether the defenders think, 30 yards, it's got to be a worldie to beat the keeper from there. But the only thing Eli Krupi can do there is shoot. Because there's like Tavernier's out here with Nico Williams. There's no threat from the left-hand side. From I'm assuming it's Semenyo out on that side. There's no threat from anywhere else. So for me as a goalkeeper in this instance, I'm screaming at my defenders to get tight, to get a block on the ball, to make it difficult for him, because you've got a 2v1 with Murillo and Milenkovic and Eli Krupi there. The two centre-halves have no other player to worry about. So as a goalkeeper, I would want them to be getting tight on the ball to try and put pressure on it to stop the shot. Look, he shoots from 28 yards and it rifles into the bottom corner. Like, Matz, you'd back a goalkeeper, an elite level goalkeeper, to save a shot from that distances more often than not. But look, he rifles it into the bottom corner. It's a great strike. But from this, the issue that I would have is there's no real reason for, in this scenario, the defenders not being tight on that ball, because they've got no other threat to deal with. Does that make sense? You see, like with the wide players, there's no attacking threat through where the ball can be slipped through. So the only thing Eli Krupi can do is shoot. So we need Murillo and Milenkovic in this scenario, one of them at least to get tight. If Milenkovic gets tight and he gets done, Murillo's still on the cover, and there's still no other threat because Eli Krupi is still the only threat. So that for me is the big issue, not getting pressure on the ball.
Yeah, you need one of them to be proactive, I think, definitely, from what you're saying. Yeah, I hear that for sure. 3 of the 4 goals we're going to look at then are set pieces. They're so prevalent in the game today. Hopefully, we've fixed that or gone some way to fixing it over the international break, and we didn't concede against Leeds. But we will look at the Man U ones and the problems that we've got. Benny mentioned the defensive setup there. this seems like a pretty standard setup that Forest have used from corners for a while. I know Will, if you check Will's Twitter feed, he did a good graphic of the shape, but also some changes in personnel. But the general shape is pretty consistent. So just talk us through how we're set up there, Belly.
So like we said when we were just talking about the Bournemouth goal, Forest, the way that they seem to commonly set up defensively is the 6 zonal players inside the 6-yard box. Then you have 2 blockers, which in this case are Anderson and Gibbs-White, just outside the 6-yard box. You've then got Hudson-Odoi in this sort of hybrid role where he's in that position, level with the post and penalty spot, 12 yards out. If a player goes for a short corner, he's in a position then to go and affect the short corner. He's also then in a position where he is now to be able to go and affect the ball on the edge of the box, which for the next goal he actually doesn't end up doing. But in this scenario here, the 6 zonal players in the 6-yard box are there to go and attack the ball. So if the ball's in your zone, you go and attack the ball. The difficulty with zonal marking is the grey areas of, well, is that my ball? Is that your ball? You've got 3 players there, we can see on the still, Jesus, Milenkovic and Savona, I think, all within a sort of 3-yard circle. Now, that to me seems a bit overkill in that area. Now, given Man United's setup here, Man U have no players in that zone. All their players around the back. Do the players on the pitch have the autonomy to be able to flip it like they do in American football, call an audible and move one of those players to the back stick? Or is this just a rigid setup? And then the issue we have here is the blocker who's actually responsible. I say responsible for Casemiro because there's 3 of them. There's Sesko, there's Casemiro, and there's someone else attacking around the back stick. And there's Gibbs-White and Elliott that are the blockers in this sense to stop the players coming through. Now, Gibbs-White actually is on Casemiro.
I keep putting the wrong stills up, sorry.
All
I'll
right,
go back to that.
Yeah. So Gibbs-White is actually responsible for being, I say responsible, he is next to Casemiro. He then ends up dropping into the back end of the 6-yard box. Now, whether that's something that has been asked to do, because for the second goal, he ends up doing the same thing. Like, he does stay with Casemiro for the second goal into that zone. But for me, you've got Casemiro attacking the ball there. Gibbs-White was on him, is now dropped out to the back zone. But you've really got 1 Forest player trying to attack the ball there. Again, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 Man United players in a 6-yard box. It's got 6 or 7 Forest players, 8 Forest players in it. The only 2 players that are out of it are Ndoi and Hudson-Odoi. You've got the rest of the Forest team, including Matz Sels, 9 players in the 6-yard box. Now, for me, if you're stacking the 6-yard box and having 6 zonal players, you'd want to be winning first contacts more often than not. Now, look, again, it's so easy in hindsight to say, well, Gibbs-White should be more effective blocking Casemiro, but Gibbs-White's not a natural blocker. He's not a natural defender. You'd want your big leaders, Murillo, Milenkovic, those types of players to be taking charge in these scenarios. And yeah, look, you can go back and say, well, it wasn't a corner in the first place, and I get that, but from the corner, there's still instances where Forest can defend better. And like I said, teams, if I can look at it, teams higher up the pyramid, Premier League teams will have whole bunches of analysts that will look into this in depth. But I just think that the setup that Forest have used under 3 different managers are still yielding the same results, in the sense that Forest do look vulnerable from set pieces. So whether that means that you just have 3 zonal players and then go with 5 markers, and then in this instance, Man U have got, I think, 4 players attacking the ball. So you could have 4 zonal, you could have 4 man markers. You're responsible for that man. Then you've still got 4 zonal players in the box to go and head the ball, and then you've still got cover from Ndoi and I think it was Hudson-Odoi there on the other side to be able to land on any seconds or land on knockdowns. So from looking at Forest corners, the way they defended, going back to the Newcastle game, I think there was a few corners in the Newcastle game where they went man for man and looked a bit more effective, whether that was because of Newcastle have got giants across the back, they've got Dan Burn, they've got big threats, whether that was just a game-specific one. But I just think maybe a change to a less zonal sort of system and to more of a hybrid where you've got 4 or 5 specific man markers and then the rest can be zonal, for me would negate that kind of issue that they have with this goal.
Would you want, this is a side question that we discussed a bit on the podcast, would you want, or as a goalkeeper yourself, do you feel like Sels could be more proactive in coming for the ball or not? I don't know if specifically on that one, I don't think he can, but in general, would you want to be more proactive as a keeper when you're conceding from set pieces?
I think it's very easy to, when there's headers that are 5 or 6 yards out, first thing people always say is goalkeeper. It's in the 6-yard box. The 6-yard box belongs to the goalkeeper. And it's very easy to sort of throw that out. Now, what people don't realise is you have to look at what's in front of you. Because if there's bodies in front of you, Forest have already got 6 players in the 6-yard box. So Manchester United are going to have attackers in the 6-yard box. You've got 10, 12, possibly 14 players in such a tight space. Now, if you've got a cluster of them going to attack the ball, if the trajectory of that ball is not high enough, Matz Sels can't affect the ball, whether that's 4 yards out, whether it's 5 yards out, whether it's 6 yards out. You just simply cannot get there because you end up going behind a crowd of bodies. If you're trying to get a punch, you're trying to reach over to get a punch on the ball. You just can't do it. So it's very much, going back to the question you asked me, it's very much specific to each incident, and you have to analyse each individual corner on its merits of, could the goalkeeper have done anything differently? Now, don't get me wrong, there might be instances where he can, but it's not just, you can't just be a generalisation of Matz Sels doesn't dominate his box. Now, okay, there might be incidents where he struggles with that, or like any goalkeeper does, but there might also be instances where, you know what, like, it's probably not a ball that he could come for. He has to stay at home and he makes the right decision, even if the ball ends up like this one in the back of the net. Casemiro heads it just on the edge of the 6-yard box. People could say, well, that's in the 6-yard box, it's the goalkeeper's. Well, no, it's not, because it's an in-swinger that started outside the 6-yard box that's probably gone 8-9 yards from goal to then bend back in. And you've got 4 or 5 more 6-7 bodies in your way, so you can't come and affect that. And yeah, in an ideal world, every goalkeeper would come and catch but you just can't do it. That's why people set up with Forest do with 6 zonal players whose sole job is to go and head the football. So that's where, if it's in their zone, you should be wanting players like that who have no responsibility to mark a man and only have to go and attack the ball, to be able to go and attack the ball in those instances. And if Matz Sels can help out, great. But it's very hard to make a sweeping generalisation without taking instances and judging them on the merits.
Do you think there's a general trend now that keepers, I was trying to think of keepers that really come for the ball in the Premier League now, and apart maybe David Raya a bit, Martinez, generally, I don't think they do. I think we saw Donnarumma come for one recently and he palmed it straight down into the ground and it ends up in the back of the net. Is that a general goalkeeper thing you've noticed, that keepers tend to let defenders deal with it more now?
Look, as a goalkeeper, you have an advantage to be able to use your hands. You can get automatically 2-3 feet above everyone else. But like I said, the way that, especially at the Premier League, like, these balls are coming in with superb quality on them. You've got elite level attackers in there. You've got movements, patterns that are changing. You're trying to keep your eye, as a goalkeeper, you're trying to keep your eyes on the ball whilst also looking into the 6-yard box to see, or the attacking players, to see who's free, to see where your setups are, to see where the ball could be going. If they load the back stick, you might adjust your position slightly. But in terms of goalkeepers coming for stuff, I think there was a phase probably before my time where it was goalkeepers needed to be massive. You needed a 6'4", 6'6" goalkeeper. But just because a goalkeeper's 6'4", 6'6", or even Pantilimon at 6'9", just because you've got keepers that are that big doesn't mean they're just going to come and catch every cross. It doesn't automatically be like, oh, well, he's 6'6", he's going to be able to catch everything. Well, are his feet quick enough? Does he judge how effectively does he judge the flight of the ball? Can he find a route through? Is he strong enough to get through bodies? What's his punching technique like? Can he? It's all right getting there, but then can you get good distance on the ball? Can you clear it into areas where there's no attackers? I wouldn't say there's a trend against keepers coming for the ball. I just think it's kind of a generalisation that goalkeepers should command the box. They should do this. And there's a general kind of consensus in that. Whereas I just think judge each instance on its merits. Like, if there's repeated instances where a goalkeeper's not coming for the ball when they should do, then maybe it's something to have a look at. But like I said, I think it's just, every goalkeeper has their strengths, weaknesses. Some will be a lot better at coming for crosses than others, but then some all have more better traits than in other areas. Now, if you're loading the box with 6 zonal defenders, the impetus would be on them to go and attack the ball because that's what they're in there to do. So that would, in effect, take responsibility away from the goalkeeper in those areas because it's for them to deal with. That's just my opinion.
I'm conscious of time, and there's 2 things I wanted to look at. So we'll do this one really quick and just gloss over it a little bit, and you can give us any observations that you want. This is Man U's second goal. We're set up. Oh, hang on, put the right camera on for a start. There we go. We're set up like that. All looks fine. There's an interesting bit. Morgan is down to block Sesko. He ends up getting beaten to the ball by Casemiro, and it drops for Ahmed. Great strike on the edge of the box. Hudson-Odoi is meant to be the guy who's closing down, and it doesn't quite happen, shall we say? Certainly. Just talk us through in general that goal, because I don't want to take up all the time.
Yeah, no, I mean, just quickly with this one, you touched on it with Gibbs-White. Sesko initially walked into Gibbs-White and then brushes past him, and then Gibbs-White does end up on Casemiro, tries to grapple with him at the back post, and Casemiro wins the header back across the 6-yard box. Now, the other issue you have with zonal marking is for second phase instances, and what I mean by second phase is Casemiro wins the first contact, and then from that header, if that's not a shot at goal, the next passage of play is what you refer to as the second phase. So after Casemiro's header, who's responsible for picking up Cunha? Who's responsible for picking up De Ligt? Because those 6 Forest zonal players don't have a man. So there's no responsibility for them to pick up a certain player. So it's not so easy to say, oh, well, whose man was that? Well, he was in my zone, or it's just such a grey area. So that's what the issue is. And I think the ball ends up getting cleared to the edge of the box. And then, Hudson-Odoi goes to press Ahmad, turns his back, doesn't get tight enough to block the shot. And look, it's a great volley and a great strike. But again, the issue for me is not winning the first contact. And then from the second phase, if Forest then need to have the zonal players need to have a responsibility for who's picking up which Man U player in the box, and in order to clear that, so that Forest then, if they lose the first contact, they don't then lose the second contact, and it doesn't end up in the back of the net. Because this is an instance with Zubamendi with the Arsenal goal in the Swansea game, not getting tight to the edge of the box. Now, the setup with Hudson-Odoi and Ndoi in this game would suggest that, okay, Forest are aware of this threat from the edge of the box, and they've got 2 players out there to be able to get out there. But then if those players don't get out there with impetus and don't put the body on the line to block the shot, then it almost negates them being there.
If you're looking for made-to-measure shutters or blinds across the East Midlands, do check out vestablinds.com. Appreciate their support as ever. If you're looking for made-to-measure advice on your home interiors, get in touch with Mrs. Belshaw on Instagram via, what is the account name?
The Design Place Interiors.
There you go. Lovely stuff. A good one to check out as well. Right. Last thing I wanted to discuss just quickly. A lot of people mentioned this at the time. We mentioned it as well at the time. In that game, Bruno Fernandes has a shot from about 30 yards or so, which hits the post and comes back out. So let me just see if this is the right strike. No, this is the first one, sorry. So Bruno's got the ball here. He's about to strike the ball. I don't know how far out he is, 25, 30 yards out. This takes me back to a goal analysis we did against Everton, where you justified why Sels struggled a little bit. So are you going to do that again here or not?
No, I am going to do that again to an extent. Yeah, no, I am, in the sense that when you watch this chance unfold, when you watch the video of it, Elliott's within sort of 5-6 yards there. But when Bruno Fernandes picks that ball up, initially there's no Forest player within 10-12 yards of him. Now, we spoke about it earlier, Bruno Fernandes being Man U's most influential player. He can't be afforded that time of space, particularly 30 yards from goal, because if he's not going to shoot, then he's a player that can pick a pass that can split a defence open and put someone in on goal. Now, look, Fernandes hits the ball. You can see the good way to do it is the cut. So those cuts on the grass are 6 yards. So he ends up hitting it from about, 27 yards. But Sels' issue is that Murillo is directly in his eye line. And we spoke about this with the Dwight McNeil goal for Everton, and we spoke about it before. If you've got a player in your eye line, a 27, 28 yard shot, becomes a 16, 17-yard shot because you only get eyes on that ball as it passes Murillo. Now, when you watch the slow-mo of Matz Sels, he actually, before this, again, you've not got the still, but before this bit, Matz Sels leans to his left to try and look round Murillo because that's the side of Murillo that Fernandes is coming from. So he's leaning the opposite way to where he actually ends up wanting to go. So he's got a little bit further to go. He gets a little step in, and then as the ball passes his hand, I was pausing it, watching it. Matz Sels is at full extension. So he's got a spring, he's at full extension, and it's just out of his reach now. If you're being super critical, and again, I'm very aware that I'm a League Two goalkeeper and Matz Sels is a Premier League goalkeeper and he's a lot better than I am, but I would like him, could he move his feet a little bit quicker? His initial step before he dives, could that be a little bit bigger to enable him to get that spring? Because his spring is fine. It's just, the two things to look at are footwork speed and the size of the step that he takes before he dives. Because what goalkeepers will do with shots from distance, get a little step in before they dive. Now, if that step could be a little bit bigger, maybe he gets a hand on it. But for me, if I'm analysing this, Murillo's in his eye line. It's a great strike from Fernandes. Sels ends up getting to full extension. But the main thing is the ball doesn't end up in the back of the net. So for me, as a fully fledged member of the goalkeepers union, that's my sort of take on it. He gets up quickly. I think it's rebounds to Casemiro, ends up putting it wide past the post. But look, I can see why people would question it. It's the same with the Eli Krupi goal. Anything from sort of 25 yards beyond, it has to be a great strike or a worldie, and most people think that ends up in the top corner. Well, no, if someone smashes one across the floor, you think it's just as hard for a goalkeeper to get down and get across the floor as it is to get up into the top corner. Now, the so-called nice height for a goalkeeper is when you can literally just dive sort of 2 or 3 feet off the floor because you haven't got to use any energy to get your legs low to push along the floor, or you haven't got to power through your legs to spring up into the top corner. So, yeah, this is bouncing across the floor, skidding. He sees it late, so he's got 16 yards to react, so you can automatically put the shot there. He gets across the goal, or covers his goal. If that's on target, well, people could say the post is on target, but it's technically not. If that's on target, Matz Sels saves that, and I don't think it goes in.
Cool. Very good. Right. Appreciate that loads. Hopefully people have enjoyed this. If you have, do us a favour, hit like, hit subscribe. If you're a member, you'll get early access to things like this, or you sign up for Patreon. So do consider that, or a lovely 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. It would be great. We shall either be back tomorrow with a Liverpool preview if this comes out on Wednesday. If it comes out on Tuesday, then we'll have something else on Wednesday. I'm not sure what yet. And then it's all Liverpool previews, full steam ahead when we get round to that later in the week. Side question on goalkeeping. It's a very cold night. Do you ever stand there in games and just think, shit, it's really cold. I wish I wasn't here.
No, not that I wish I wasn't here, but you do think, yeah, it is cold. If the action's up the other end and it's raining, hailing, snowing, I've played in some right conditions and it can be difficult. Because what people think is gloves keep your hands warm. Well, they actually don't, because you have to keep your gloves quite wet when you're playing. If your gloves are too dry, then you've got no grip. So you just think you've got your hands pretty much in like a bucket of ice. Like ice water is basically what you've got your hands in. And once your fingers start going and the feeling starts going in your fingers, trying to then put your hands in the correct position to catch the ball can be a real challenge. So, yeah, these are the nuances and the struggles that as goalkeepers have to deal with.
Coldest game you've played in, if you recall any?
Coldest game, Boxing Day, 2014, Tamworth, away at Solihull Moors. And it was freezing. Snow, oh God, that was horrendous. That was the coldest I've ever been on a football pitch. Just sleet, snow. We ended up winning 2-0. But I think for the last 10, 15 minutes, I was just like, please just keep this ball away from me. Because I just couldn't move my hands. My hands were literally stuck like that. I remember there was one header that's come to me and I've just like shoveled it over the bar. I just had no feeling in my hands. It was, that was the coldest I've ever been on a football pitch,
Lovely. Good insight to end on. Appreciate that. Like I say, we'll be back tomorrow. Thanks very much to Belly. Anything you want to add before we go? I've kept you for so long. Mrs. Belshaw's going to be kicking off soon. But anything you want to add?
I think she's got I'm a Celeb on the iPad. So I think she's all right. Yeah, as long as little one stays asleep and I don't get in trouble for that, then that's fine.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Right. Thanks to Belly. Do hit like before you go. Thanks for your company. And if we don't see you tomorrow, we shall see you soon.